Hi friends, I've got a full master guide on how to play Seer in Apex Legends Season 10. Seer is the new legend that's arrived in Apex Legends Emergence, and he has a very specific set of skills that could make him a nightmare for you and your squad. I will talk you through each of Seer's abilities and give you tips as we go through. Let's get started with Seer's passive, Heartseeker. This passive lets you hear the heartbeats of enemies nearby. You can hear enemies up to 75 meters away, which is a fair distance. To put that into perspective, it's exactly the same distance that Bloodhound's scan reaches. While aiming down sights, you'll see a blue circle. If it's just blue without any spikes around the circle, it means there are no enemies within 75 meters of that direction. When you start seeing orange spikes, this indicates which direction the enemy is in. If you've also got good audio, you'll notice the heartbeat sounds in your left or right ear, and this means you can use sound to tell whether enemies are on your left or your right, as well as the visual cues that you see. You may also notice blue spikes, and this simply means the enemy is further away. A useful tip is that the circle will turn orange when you're directly looking at an enemy. Now this ability does work through walls and objects, so if you're looking directly at a wall and the circle is fully orange, it means there's someone within 75 meters on the other side of that wall, and this can be really useful for you to use. And do remember this because it can help you with your tactical, which I'll talk about a little bit later in this video. Now the cool thing with this passive is that you can use it without a gun, meaning Seer is the only legend that can ADS without holding a weapon. A good tip here is that whenever you're rotating or moving around the map, just constantly keep ADSing as Seer, and this will help you know if enemies are around. It's kind of like when you use Bloodhound's scan, except the difference here is that people won't know you're using it. And this is good because the enemies won't be able to tell, but it does also mean that your teammates won't know. So do make sure you're pinging and calling out as soon as you notice enemies on your heartbeat sensor. Another top tip is that if you listen closely to your heartbeat sensor, you'll notice the heartbeat gets louder and faster as the enemies get closer to you. And this means you can use the heartbeat sensor to not only tell which direction the enemy is in, but also how close they are. Another tip for this passive is to look out for a faint blue border while you're ADSing. This border indicates the radius of your heartbeat sensor. Anything outside of that radius won't be picked up, so keep this in mind. And that's Seer's passive in a nutshell with some tips. Don't forget, Seer is a recon legend, and this means he can scan the survey beacons to find the location of the next ring. So don't forget to do that, it's very useful, especially in ranked. Let's move on to Seer's tactical. Focus of attention. You can summon micro drones to emit a delayed blast that goes through walls, interrupting and revealing enemies. This is a cross between Bloodhound's scan and Revenant's silence. You essentially create a cylinder area in front of Seer, which after 1 second hits all enemies inside that cylinder. Now the effect itself deals 10 damage, reveals the enemies inside, and it shows their health bars. In addition to all of this, it also interrupts their actions, such as revives, healing items, and even legend abilities. Now the tactical itself lasts 8 seconds and has a 30-second cooldown time, and this is actually 5 seconds longer than Bloodhound's cooldown time for their tactical. Now remember I said you could use your passive to help with your tactical? Well, the radius of Seer's tactical is quite narrow compared to Bloodhound and even Crypto's drone. Even though the distance is the same as Bloodhound's, you need to be more targeted with Seer. So you can use your passive to tell when an enemy will be in range of your tactical. And you do this by simply ADSing, and when that circle is orange, that's when you hit your tactical. And this will really help you hit more enemies with your tactical. A tip here is that you can also hold down your tactical button and it will bring up the heartbeat sensor. So this is another way for you to use the heartbeat sensor passive to be more effective with your tactical. In terms of when to use this ability, you want to hit this tactical as quickly and as early as possible. Like I said, enemies do have time to move out of the cylinder because it takes a second before it hits. So catching them by surprise will make all of the difference when using Seer's tactical. Additionally, because of the 10 damage the tactical does, it's a great way to deal damage to enemies. and this works to deal some initial damage if you're pushing a team, but it also works as a way to finish off enemies. For example, if an enemy is only one hit and they duck behind cover, because this tactical can go through walls and through objects, it's a great way for you to finish off that enemy. Likewise, because it stops enemies healing, it's a great way to stop them healing while you're pushing. And the same applies for movement legends, like Valkyrie, Octane and Pathfinder, because it interrupts their abilities. If you've done some damage and you're worried about them using their movement abilities to escape, you can use the tactical to stop them escaping and give you enough time to catch up with them. So that's the tactical, along with some top tips on how to use it effectively. Now let's move on to Seer's ultimate ability. It's called Exhibit. You create a dome of micro drones that reveals the location of enemies moving quickly or firing their weapons within. This not only highlights the enemies, but their footsteps as well for you and your team. You'll see when it's deployed because it creates a big dome. Now be aware, this dome is not only visible to you and your teammates, but also enemies, so they will have the opportunity to leave that dome area, but also if a team's pushing in, they'll know a dome's deployed, and they can choose not to push in. The ultimate lasts 30 seconds and has a 1.5 minute cooldown time, so you will notice this ultimate charges up fairly quickly. The ultimate itself has a diameter of 65 meters, and you can throw it up to 50 meters away, so you can deploy it ahead of you from quite a fair distance. Now the device itself can be destroyed and has 135 HP, so top tip here if you're using the ultimate is place it somewhere out of enemy's view. And it doesn't matter if you've got a building with multiple levels, you can place it on the ground floor and it will still capture enemies on the top floor. And a good tip here if you're against a Seer, don't be afraid to shoot the ultimate. Like I said, it has 135 HP, and so far I found people haven't really started destroying those ultimates. But like people learned to destroy Horizon's ultimate, I'm sure people will learn to destroy Seer's ultimate. Another useful point to take note of, when using the ultimate, on your heads up display, you'll see the number of enemies detected for the full 30-second duration. Of course, this only detects enemies that are moving or shooting. There are situations when enemies won't be detected, even if they are inside your dome. For example, if enemies are crouch walking, they won't be detected. Also, if they're in the air, for example going up a jump tower, or a Pathfinder using his tactical, or even a Valkyrie flying through the air, you won't be able to detect them using Seer's ultimate, and this is why it's quite a good idea to combine the passive and the tactical while using the ultimate. Let me just finish by giving you a few scenarios where you can use Seer's abilities more effectively. One interesting and useful tip I can give you with the dome is that you can deploy it ahead of you. So for example, if you're pushing into an area or a building, or even if you're moving to the last circle, you can actually throw the ultimate ahead of you and it will give you an idea of where the enemies are located as you're pushing into an area or a building. You can also use the dome defensively. Let's say you're holding a building. If you get your dome down early, you can really see where the enemy team are if they try and push you. And I find it's quite a useful deterrent for teams to push. So if you combine this with a defensive legend like a Caustic or a Watson, this can be a really great strategy. Overall, I would say the trick for using Seer's tactical is to use it as more of a targeted hit, while using his ultimate works best to zone and cover a wider area. I would also say don't be afraid to ADS as much as possible as Seer. I found it a really effective strategy when I play Seer to constantly jump in and out of ADS. It's easy to do whether you've got a weapon out or not, and it's really going to help you understand where enemies are, and this can definitely help you get more kills and more wins in Apex Legends Season 10. I hope you found this guide useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got so much more Season 10 content coming your way, so keep a lookout. For now though, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.